all the American people went through each one of these presidents. They looked at Harry Truman and Eisenhower and JFK, and they had a methodology, and they, you know, weighed each president out on equal footing, because that's what Americans do. They know their presidents. In fact, I've taken a bunch of U.S. history courses in college, but when it gets to some of the modern day presidents, they just drop off because they don't really want to speak about any of the closer contemporary issues, because then it shows where they stand on other issues. So they want to become, they pretend they're objective and have no biases, so they don't actually teach the stuff that's coming up shortly. The Weather Underground wasn't even mentioned in my, so U.S. history, they never even mentioned, you know, the 1855 Know Nothing riots. They don't say these things. They don't talk about these things. So no, the American people did not study Nixon and Carter and Ford and Reagan and Papa Bush and Baby Bush and Clinton and Obama, and then said, well, who do we like this, we didn't like that. Bullshit. These are fucking Republicans who just fucking hating on Obama. Then these are just Democrats hating on George Bush, and it sucks because it's such a fucking stupid partisan divide. It's not an educated populace. It's just a bunch of fucking Dems and Republicans. It's a two-party dictatorship. And they're both for big business. They're both for the war on drugs. They're both for the war on terror. They're both for the military-industrial complex. There is a difference, but it's slight. And then we're going to see after this election, when coming up, if the you know, Mitch McConnell's efforts have been done in vain, right? So Barack Obama has accomplished a lot. He passed the Lilly Ledbetter Equal Pay Act, so if women should be paid the same as men for the same job. If they do the same job, of course. Who would argue with that? What kind of fucking sexist, bigoted, racist, backwards, misogynistic fucking douchebag, you know? Basically, those who argue for that would also be the, you know, on the flip side, those, you know, males who argue for, or females, or those who argue for alimony, right? So you get fucking alimony and you also get unequal pay. Get the fuck out of here. You need to understand justice and what's right and what's fair. And Obama is a mixed record though, so that's a good thing. But then he fucking had a coup d'etat in Honduras. So he's an empire, he's an imperial president. He's fucking 12 different wars, right? When Nixon was in office, it wasn't just Vietnam, it was Laos and Cambodia, right? They basically extended the war as far as they wanted to. And why? Because the French had been colonizing and they had occupied them, and the Vietnamese were, it was, you know what they call, you know what the Vietnamese called the fucking Vietnam War? They call it the American War. We named the war after our enemies, they named it after the enemies. And it's also their war for independence, because they had to overthrow the French, overthrow the Japanese, overthrow the fucking Americans. We only had the British to deal with, right? Where the, I guess the French and the Spanish, I guess the fucking English would have got all those people off the fucking continent, but they weren't occupying all of them, so it wasn't like all of them was occupying the same space. Essentially, it just took a bunch of, like, imperialistic fucking wars, right? They just kept pushing each other and attacking each other whenever they felt like it, which probably was terrifying. It's probably scary. So this poll, it sits there and says that Barack Obama is the worst president of mankind. And then check out what they say is the best presidents, okay? So they say the best presidents, Ronald Reagan's 35%, then they say John Kennedy 15%. So John Kennedy, nobody fucking hated him. Nobody hated Truman. Truman fucking dropped the fucking atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and just wiped out an entire fucking nation, city of people in a moment. They say it saved fucking American troops, but if he wasn't doing it, if that was his intention, if that was his heart, that'd be good, but that's not why Truman dropped the bomb. Truman dropped the bomb because Truman has no fucking respect for human life. Truman dropped the bomb because he's a bastard. Truman dropped the bomb because he's, you know, wanted to scare Stalin. So he didn't even give a fuck about the actual troops or anything. He's thinking realpolitik, geopolitical, and so aftermath, we gotta fucking scare Stalin into submission, so let's bomb the shit out of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And it's fucked up too, because Japan adores us. It absolutely loves our culture. Germany too, but we have fucking, we're an empire, right? So we stopped them from being an empire so we could be the empire. 900 military bases, 150 countries. Yes, we're an empire. Easily. It's what everybody else acknowledges us. And then, in fact, my complaint against Obama is actually going to be my complaint against the American people, because Obama's kind of really just doing what he's being pushed to do. Tea Party's pushing him one direction, and, you know, the Democratic Party's pushing him another. But we're the liberals, where's the left? You don't see them. Occupy is, you know, kind of dead in the water. They didn't get any political positions. Tea Party at least You know, they got a senator and they got some. They're like the Know Nothing Party, right? They're starting to fucking make gains and get positions of power. So I feel as though the people are to blame equally with Obama. They're both to be blamed because when the American people figure out what they want, what do they want? Do they want to police the world? Does the American people want to be an empire? And that's fine. If we're an empire, then we should do humanitarian missions and we should fucking make sure everybody's okay and safe in this entire fucking planet. If we're not an empire, let's pack up and come back home. We don't need any more military outposts. We should work on trade, not fucking occupation, not military occupation. We're just having a foothold, just having a piece of property in another country is enough. Essentially, that's how Fort Sumter. That's how the fucking war and the Civil War had started, because the South, Virginia, South Carolina, I don't know where it was at, but Fort Sumter was attacked upon. It was a federal fort, so the argument was they're defending their own fort, they're defending their own property because they're being attacked upon, but they're sitting there saying, get the fuck out of our state, you don't have a right to be here. So if the feds can put the fort in an American country and then they, never leave, they're never going to leave anywhere else. If they put a fort in Cuba, if they put a fort in Guam, if they put a fort in Bolivia, Peru, Germany, Japan, Iraq, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, anywhere that they fucking put a fort, they got a foothold. So really you don't need to be a military occupier. If the UN and the world says, yes, this motherfucker's a Hitler and they're invading a sovereign nation, which is the point of the United Nations, to stop a Hitler, to stop one country from invading another country willy-nilly for no fucking reason, for someone that never posed any threat, for imaginary weapons of mass destruction. 1 million Iraqi people are dead. ISIS is taking it over. It was all for nothing. The whole fucking thing was pointless, just like Vietnam. Military-industrial complex. So I don't think the American people have actually made a decision what they want. Do they want to be an isolationist country? Do they want to be libertarian, Ron Paul type of fucking person? And I am very sympathetic with that. Actually, yes, I believe 100% that we should bring our boys home and we shouldn't be an empire, because that's how the Roman Empire collapsed. They kept expanding their empires, were paying for all these wars and all these overseas adventures. Meanwhile, the internal infrastructure of America's collapsed. There's like 50 to 100 bridges that are obsolete, functionally obsolete, and these are the bridges that are, in our country. So why do we, spend all these $1 trillion on all this fucking technology to blow up the world when we don't even have the shit that we need right here in our own country? But of course, we all know that. It's clear. It's Dwight Eisenhower was a good guy because he actually mentioned the military-industrial complex. He warned about the military-industrial complex, but he picked Nixon as his fucking running mate. Nixon was a creep, okay? He's a kind of a mixed character himself, but he was a creepy fucking bastard. He's a weirdo. He abused FBI surveillance, just like LBJ. So actually, whenever they get the fucking wiretapping, they never want to stop. So they were wiretapping through the FBI, LBJ and Nixon. W. Bush, between W. Bush and Ronald Reagan, between Baby Bush and Ronald Reagan, I don't know which one of those fuckers are the worst. Nixon was pretty bad, but Reagan, maybe unbeknownst to him, because he seems like really stupid, so it doesn't seem like he knew what he was doing, but every one of his measures was anti-labor, anti-union, pro-bankers, pro-working class. He inspired an entire generation of anti-government people to get into government and fucking be dicks, right? Plus Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, he fucking assassinated Oscar Romero. Panama, or Grenada, they fucking invaded Grenada. Panama, that was Daddy Bush, he invaded Panama. There was a coup d'etat in Haiti, that was Daddy Bush. There was a coup d'etat, Baby Bush did a coup d'etat in Haiti, so they're just fucking having fun. Coup d'etat here, coup d'etat there. They coup d'etat Baby Doc in '86, which actually I think they did for the reason they fucked over all those Latin American countries, so why don't they actually do some goodwill and actually get a bad guy? And they did. So they fucking overthrow a bad fucking dictator, but then they overthrew the fucking democratically elected dictator. So really, I think Bush is going to be it's bullshit, because all the Democrats come out against the war talking all that shit and tricked me, and I'm like, yeah, in the war. But that wasn't even serious. That wasn't serious talk. That was just bullshit they were fucking using to get the people all excited. They had no intention of actually ending the war. And it's bullshit, because I fucking believed in what they were actually saying, but they had no intention whatsoever, because it's an empire. So what are they going to do? Bring everybody home? No, they're not going to fucking do that. And I think it's bullshit because now, since we're not going to be bringing our troops home and we're going to keep the military-industrial complex and everybody, CIA and 12 wars running, war on terror never ending, have fucking imperial president every election. Go ahead and consolidate it more than it's ever been consolidated. Executive signing statements. Really, it is. I mean, he is a fucking dictator. But that's because George W. Bush was a dictator, so Obama's inheriting that sort of strong executive branch. Where's I going with all this? Oh, so there's a decision, there's a deciding point of what it is the American people actually want. You know, when it comes, do we want to police the world or do we want to bring all of our boys home? And if you want to bring all the boys home, then that's the direction that we need to fucking go. So, I forget where I was going with the other thing. There's, Barack Obama is, he's going to be it's going to be a mixed legacy, okay? So let's actually just go down all the presidents. I don't believe that the American people actually went down all these presidents, okay? So you got Harry Truman, who bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 1949. China becomes communist, so that's why he put some advisors in Vietnam. Korean War, that happens, right? It ends in a stalemate. So what are we doing? Why are we entering all these fucking Indochina wars? He wants to contain communism, so he's declaring war on an idea. He hated communism over in Asia, but he also enacted the Marshall Plan, so he's giving communism to Europe, right? He's just giving them just chunks of money so they can fucking rebuild themselves after World War II. August 6th and 9th is when Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened in 1945. That's Harry Truman. FDR dies, Harry Truman gets the fucking power, and he just fucking unleashes hell. He finishes FDR's term out, serves another term, and doesn't go for another term, which is actually respectable because he steps down, right? So, unlike FDR, who was more of an imperialist president who would never step down, Nixon stepped down, Truman stepped down, Washington stepped down, and they stepped down after 8 years. Some people get power, state representatives in there for like 20 to 30 years all across the board. In Kentucky, check out Kentucky. There's so many people that are career politicians that's in Frankfurt right now. Dwight D. Eisenhower, he had military advisors in Vietnam. Nixon was his running mate. And, Vietnam, you had 1 to 4 million who was dead, and then 58,000 who had died of Americans. So 1 to 4 million. 1 to 4 million. We killed 1 million Iraqis. Hitler killed 6 million. Stalin killed 10 in World War II. So 6 million, we're 1/6 of the Hitler. We're a fucking imperialistic, occupying, dominating nation. And we should be isolationists. The empire doesn't help me. Empire doesn't help the working classes. At JFK, the Bay of Pigs, the Vietnam, he put more fucking advisors and troops into South Vietnam. He only served 2 years. He was inspiring, but we don't know what accomplishments are going to be put out there. He talked about there's the Bilderberg Group or Illuminati, and he talked about some other things, civil rights. LBJ eventually passes civil rights, but he escalates Vietnam to a crazy degree. The Gulf of Tonkin resolution. So it's just like when Ronald Reagan started bombing Libya. Ronald Reagan was bombing Gaddafi before Obama started bombing Gaddafi. He bombed Gaddafi for his international war on terrorism because supposedly there was a hit job on some American soldiers in a West Berlin nightclub. But the whole fucking thing just sounds made up. It just sounds like total bullshit. Fucking troops at a nightclub, are they stationed there? Are they working there? Were they just having fun and something happened? Did that event even happen? I think it was just bullshit. I think it was total fucking, it was made up. Just like Polk's War, the Mexican-American War, just like the Spanish-American War. In Vietnam, we got the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, 1964. So that's LBJ making shit up, saying that there's an exchange of gunfire out in Vietnam, and he needs congressional authorization to escalate the shit out of the fucking Vietnam conflict, and they give him the authorization, and then he fucking, sends more troops, and then just starts a vicious bombing campaign. LBJ ended up just being, he could have ran again, so he's just like Truman, but he fucking is like Cincinnatus, right? The great fucking Roman emperor who fights the war, wins the war, comes home, and then fucking becomes a farmer and says, fuck it, I'm done. So, okay, so you got fucking LBJ, Vietnam, JFK, Vietnam, Eisenhower, Truman, Now we got Nixon. Nixon, he says if the president does it, then it's not illegal. So he believes in the imperial presidency. Nothing he can do can nothing could touch him, and that was sort of his downfall. But Bush, in the movie, it sounded like his downfall was actually him recording himself, right? Because they fought for his own private tapes, which he kept for history's sake. But they said since he had private tapes and they subpoenaed them, that means he must give them in court in the discovery process, because that is part of the fucking evidence of Watergate, of him breaking into the Democratic